It can't be bargained with. It can't be reasoned with. It doesn't feel pity or remorse or fear. And it absolutely will not stop. Ever. Until you are dead.
I'll be there.
We'll see how it goes. I gotta get caught up. Ready to do this?
Yeah.
All right. Welcome back to Thinking Critical. This is Wes. I've been out of commission for a couple days in the hospital with the sick baby. A little update. The baby's doing great. He's doing fantastic, but they did want to keep him another night for observations. So he'll be coming home tomorrow. My wife said, I need you to get out of here and get back to work. So I said, okay, I'm going to do that. Obviously, in the meantime, there have been a few comic book stories that I need to talk about. The big one being the new comic book workers union that popped up. And here to talk to me about that is a man that covers. He's a critic of DC, specifically Batman, but also a critic of pop culture in general. The man from Pop by Culture, Josh McDonald. How you doing, Josh?
Good morning. I'm doing all right. My internet's wanting to kind of lag a little bit, so if I get a little digitized or cut out, I apologize.
It's no worries, brothers. We don't have high production values here. People are used to it with me, but don't worry. So we've got I
was just gonna say I've considered, with these lack of high production values, just showing up in like a wife beater and underwear one day, but we'll see.
It would fit the tone of the show.
I know, right?
So we've got the comic book workers union, and it turns out it's really funny. I remember when I saw the headline, I was like, how does this work with Image Comics? Like, Image doesn't even hire editors. The only people that work for them are just like staff that are, obviously are supporting the execs, supporting the marketing and whatever efforts that are going on there, because Image is essentially there as an opportunity and a platform for creators to kind of bet on themselves, but have a publisher there to back them up. But they don't provide a ton of support. So I was like, how is this going to be like a comic book like creators union? It turns out it's not. It's just the staff workers. And I guess there's a couple of things in here. It's interesting. There's only 9 people. I don't think unions are really supposed to be for workplaces of like 20 people total. So I think there's a bit of ridiculous in here. But this is what they said. This is the big quote from when they announced it, that they've been taken for granted at best and exploited at worst. Our workforce in comic book publishing industry as a whole is overtaxed and undervalued. This is detrimental not only to general staff, but also to the creators we are paid to serve and the audiences they in turn work to entertain, unquote. And they go on for a lot longer here. What were your initial impressions of the announcement, Josh? Did you find it kind of as funny as I did?
Oh, I definitely found it funny. Like you, I initially thought, creatives and creators would be involved with this. And then the moment that I learned that they're not, I just felt like this was a joke. Because I believe once you start looking at Image's staffing, like their actual staff, not people that they contract to do work, but their actual staff, it's like less than 50, correct?
It's very few people.
Yeah. So for me, I didn't see the point. I didn't understand why this is coming about, even just holistically before I dove into what they were looking for. Because I feel like if you're going to have a union, you need to have more people. And that's just the basis of, being able to get stuff done.
Probably a workplace environment that's kind of dangerous, or that's, that's being under the thumb of an industry that's making a lot of money. Comics aren't making a lot of money. It's a very small industry.
Yeah.
Are they overworked? I guarantee that they are. But in this case, I don't know. It just seemed like a ridiculous notion. But you mentioned the 9 goals. Let's get into the 9 goals, and let's get into the bottom of what they're actually looking for. So they know off these 9 goals, and it talks about they want performance feedback. Yes, employees should get performance feedbacks. They wanted monthly meetings. Okay. Job descriptions that like encompass what they were actually going to get paid to do. Hey, if you want a job like that, be a contractor, because they can't make you do anything that's outside of your contract. If you're an employee, all bets are off. They can certainly expand your day-to-day work. What you're going to be doing for your job. And they wanted to open jobs to in-house candidates before hiring outside of the publisher. I've seen stuff like that before, and remote work opportunities and stuff like that. But that's all window dressing for what they really want, Josh. and they want to be gatekeepers. And what's crazy is you think about what Image Comics was founded on was the opportunity for creators to bet on themselves, not have to work under corporate comics and go out and put out the stories that they wanted to without having to fit into the Marvel method, whatever it is that DC Comics wanted them to do their story, and basically be able to put out their story without any interference, but with some backup from a publisher. And these 9 employees want to remove that, basically the entire existence of why Image Comics was created. And this is what it said in the quote of the 9 goals. A renewed commitment to company values through the addition of a collective voting option to immediately cancel publication of any title whose creators have been found to have engaged in abuse, sexual assault, racism, and xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, ableism, etc., until such time as said creators have engaged in meaningful reparations toward affected persons.
Yeah, not a fan. I mean, when you break it down, to me, I find that very scary, and it's just because, one, it is gatekeeping, but 2, different people have different ideas of what is homophobic or transphobic or Islamophobic. I mean, we've had people on the show here call other people homophobic when they are homosexuals. So for me, it's just like, if you get this bandwagon effect, I don't think it's ever a good idea, especially when you're trying to run a company. And that's kind of what it looks like this would turn into, is, a majority rule. And I think that kind of stifles.
I call
creativity.
it mob rule, Josh.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, very much so. And if you lean with a smaller group like that, it definitely will probably fall into mob rule, especially if you have like-minded individuals that make up that majority.
Absolutely. You start seeing all these things, and so they want to censor or deny the ability for art to be presented, because we are artists, right? Based on whatever that is, like a purity test. Did you pass our purity test? Can I go in the last 5 years on your social media or in an interview from 10 years ago and find something that I don't like to, basically remove you from a project? Or let's say, I don't know, founding member Todd McFarlane wants to hire Frank Miller, someone that likely was an enormous influence on his comic book career, to do a Spawn cover. These dipshits, like a couple of secretaries, probably, a couple of marketing people, and a custodian, that mops the floors, wants the ability to take Todd McFarlane's, hiring ability away and to put people on projects that he wants to. Yeah.
One of the things I'd be curious to see is kind of what the age of these 9 people are that came together to do this.
Guaranteed in between 25 and 35.
That's exactly what I was going to say. And I fall in that age bracket, but I think sometimes that age group doesn't fully understand business. And the reason decisions are made or not made. And sometimes they take business decisions personally when they shouldn't be taken personally. And I feel like that's a large part of what they're wanting to do here. And I think they think this is a power play on their part, but I don't know if it is. I mean, even the way they went about this was really strange. Because I believe they presented it and then posted it on Twitter, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. So it seems like they're trying to even get some mob rule or some backing that way, which
they're trying to pressure Image into acquiescing to them and saying, yes, you can establish your union, or we will acknowledge you without ever, there are things, there are motions and precedents that have to be set before you can create your union. They're just like, you need to acknowledge us and let us have this kind of power.
Yeah. As someone who's worked like in a management perspective at an executive level for a major corporation, for me, the way they went about this just feels wrong. Like, I understand wanting change. I understand, if perhaps they feel overworked. I get those aspects, and I think that's everywhere right now. But there are better ways you can go about this, perhaps like a better work environment group within the company that you partner with your bosses on. But this just feels like, I don't like what we're doing. I want it my way. These people agree. Here's how we're going to make that happen. And it seems like a strong arm to just will their will into practice.
But it's crazy. They don't have any power. None of these people are creators. None of these people are editors with track records of huge amounts of sales. This company, the lifeblood of Image Comics is creativity. The lifeblood of Image Comics is creators. The lifeblood of Image Comics is artists. None of them are included in this, so there's no power in any of it.
No, not at all. But that's my point. I think they're trying to gain some type of power, and I think that's ultimately their mission is they want to feel like they have some say and they have some power, and that's what they're trying to shoot for and strive for here. Because if they get this where they can veto things, they're gonna have a power. So, I'm sure things have come out, or their creators have worked at Image and they disagree with those creators being there, and they decided, well, we don't like this. What can we do? And this was their like Hail Mary.
I bet you, just based on this blurb that they put in there, have engaged in abuse, sexual assault, racism, xenophobia, homophobia, transphobia, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, ableism, etc. I bet you I could go to everybody that's written an Image comic this year, if they've had social media for at least 5 years, and I can find something where I could say falls in one of these categories. Including the people that signed up for this.
Oh yeah, no, that's kind of my point. That's where the danger
by taking things out of context.
Like,
it's too easy.
Yeah, and that's what's talking about earlier is like your definition of whatever these elements may be is going to vary from person to person. But you also have to be careful because you might be doing this now to benefit you, but 5 years from now it'll be the opposite.
You know what's interesting? We saw something like this very similar with Kickstarter. Obviously, they have a much larger staff. And they essentially have curators. Like if you're the Kickstarter comic book person, you curate the line of comic books that are going to be crowdfunded on. You're going to, you got some, ideas of what can and cannot be go on there. And they wanted more power as well. They decided to create a union, which is once again hilarious. These aren't unsafe work conditions. These aren't enormous, swaths of workforce, right? Kind of a smaller play, but I guess everybody wants a union nowadays. But their reasoning was to be gatekeepers as well. And next thing you know, Kickstarter came out and said, you know what? The quarterlies aren't looking like we thought. We're just going to have to do some layoffs. And guess who got laid off? The people that wanted to do the gatekeeping. Because you think about what Kickstarter is supposed to be, it's an opportunity to go outside the traditional publishing method if you're a comic book creator and go to an audience and see if they're willing to pre-fund your project.
Yep.
Without preconditions, and they wanted to have a purity test there. Now it's just moving over to the publishers themselves. And this will definitely trickle down. And if there's any success here, and I honestly don't believe there will be, we'll get to the Image Comics, what they had to say as far as their response to this. But you definitely see people at Boom, Marvel, DC trying to go along with this as well.
You think they'll try? Well, yeah. I mean, I'm sure you'll have some people try to jump in. I think if you're going to end up having some type of union within the comics industry because of how small the industry is, you're going to have something that's industry wide. And honestly, I think when you start dealing with powers like Warner and then especially Disney, I think it's a lofty goal. I don't see that happening.
Well, you know where this comes from, right? This is all kind of a fallout, I think, probably for the Warren Ellis stuff, where Temple Smith announced that he and Warren Ellis were going to bring the project back, and then we got that. Yeah. We will not publish this until meaningful reparations have been held by the parties. Of course, we get that line here, what they're saying, and I think they saw that they had power there. They created an uproar, not only within the company but outside. And it did give them power, and they were able to stop a project, and they just want this to be permanent and to have a voting measure in place so they can just do it whenever they want.
Agreed. And that kind of, gives this notion of, if you let people win, and I'm not saying you shouldn't stick up for what's good or right. There are times that decisions need to be made, but if you kind of give in to the mob, you set a precedent that you will give in to the mob and continuously give in to the mob. And you're right. It probably happened here. You've got Jeff Johns also at Image right now. And I know a lot of people have issue with him. So I'm sure a couple of things are playing into this. And I just in general, from a generalization, I think so many times as individuals, we look for what separates us or what makes us different. And I think if we ever just sat down and had conversations with people, we'd be way more productive. And I don't think that's happening.
I do not believe Image Comics is going to give in this time. This is what they had to say as far as a release in response to this new comic creators worker union. Image has always believed in the fair and equitable treatment of staff and has always strived to support employees to the best of our company's ability with regard to their employment. That seems to me that they're like, whatever, this isn't happening.
Yeah, I think whatever is the best response, because I think the brevity of their response and their lack of acknowledging any specifics other than them being, open to different ideas and different people. I think it tells us many things that Image is looking at this from this perspective of this is not a serious take. And also their perspective is probably like, hey, if you 9 people don't like this, go find another job. Like, what you dislike here, you're probably going to find in multiple other jobs. Does that mean we can't do better? No. But I don't think they're going to take this seriously. I would say hopefully just within the office, they might have a sit down to discuss how could we potentially make things better for you. And I think if you have a give and take with some of these requests, fine. Because some of it was, more work from home type benefits.
Yeah, there were definitely things in there that make sense. They should get performance feedbacks. You should have a monthly meeting where people can talk about the state of the company and where we're going. What are the future goals that we're going to be going through? And as far as I want a job description, I only want to have to do that. Become a contractor, because if you're just an employee, you know this as well as I do, this shit needs to be taken care of. It's going to be taken care of by the people that are getting paid.
Yep.
Stuff comes up.
And it seems like some of the disgruntled nature of these people too is mostly been over the past year. And a lot of it's kind of been from claiming they're out of the loop or there's not communication. And honestly, looking at the past year, it's hard to communicate, like even in the business I'm in, like trying to get information, trying to get products because we sell products, and dealing with the supply chain, dealing with vendors. Like there's multiple times where we can't provide an answer because we don't have an answer. And I'm sure in some ways that's going on with them. We're seeing production issues, paper shortages. You have the staff that's working. You've got income coming in, coming out. Like there's so many things at play that there may have just been moments where as a company, Image couldn't say, here's what we're doing for the next year, because they don't know. It's just all up in the air. So
their job literally is making creative things, publishing books, accepting pitches and partnering with creators and putting the product out. Unless you're in like the marketing department, why would they consult you anyway? What do you have? You don't have any say as far as the creative direction of the company, unless I have to tell you what we're actually doing. At that point, it's already a done deal. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Some of the claims that are being, or some of the requests that are being made, or in this case, it sounds like demands that these people are wanting. It really just comes off that these people want to feel more important than they are. And I don't mean that and to knock them, but you're in a business and you have a structure and you're working a certain position. It's like you're alluding to, like your opinion does not matter in these aspects. But it seems like they want their opinion to matter. Yeah.
We know that there's a position that you put in, your submission. This is the project. This is the creative team. Here's a sample, and this is what the project is going to be. And there's a guy that goes through it, and it's not Eric Stevenson, the publisher. It goes through it and says, I think this is a good project before it's okayed by Stevenson himself. Yeah, that guy needs to be in the know on what's being submitted. It's his job to know. But if you're Todd McFarlane's secretary or you're mopping floors, that's not really in your purview of what we're actually doing. That's not in the scope of your responsibilities.
Agreed. Completely agree.
It's crazy, man. I've heard they're having to give signing bonuses for people to work at McDonald's now. So it's an ever-changing workforce. Let's put it that way.
That is a fact. I can tell you right now, we have a restaurant here that is doing a pay scale increase for just servers. If servers come on, they get I think $100 hiring bonus, and then it increases for each month that they stay. So it's insane.
A retention bonus.
Pretty much, yeah. It's a signing bonus and then a retention bonus.
There you go. That's crazy.
It's
an odd world.
It is.
This was a joke. When I saw the headline, I said none of this makes sense. When I saw the details, it made sense then, but there's no way this is gonna pass. But there's certainly going to be more people out there trying to gatekeep the industry and trying to give purity tests on who is and isn't allowed to be published in comic books. I'll let you have the last word, Josh.
Yeah, I mean, I think that right there is the key. That it looks like their main initiative here is to try to have that purity test, is what you called it. And, you know, again, I will just say that's a very dangerous mindset to have, because what you may approve of now and disapprove of now, it could flip on you within just a short amount of time. So, you know, just play it smart. If you're in a business situation where you think there could be things that are better or could be done better, just, you know, make a committee within your office, go to them as individuals, and you'll probably see more change and better change that way than just going against the grain.
I do want to say thank you very much to Josh for joining me and talking about this. And I'll be surprised if this thing dies very soon. I think there'll probably be more attempts at other places, but this particular one isn't going to go far. It actually made 0 sense for Image Comics, whereas DC or Marvel, it kind of made sense.